What do you mean we should be doing more? Do we have any authority in this? I thought the Malaysians were in charge.
Yeah, and I think at the beginning that was the right approach to see what they could do. But now we've seen, I think, a very uncoordinated search effort. In some cases, we have information that's not coming out. The airline isn't communicating with the passengers. And I think with the potential of this being a terrorist act, I think the United States has a responsibility to get out there in front and see what we can find. I think we're working pretty hard at this, but it's a big ocean. There's a lot of resources that are needed, and I think we need to kind of all hands on board here. You know, I hope it's not a terror issue. I hope it's something else. But with the potential of that, I think it's important for us to be really pushing hard.
I could understand, but who's to say we haven't been pushing? Do you get the sense that we are not?
No, look, I think we are, but I think to some extent, you know, where the Malaysians claim that they have jurisdiction, we ought to be talking to them behind the scenes and saying, look, you guys are having a hard time getting this together. We are seeing that, for instance, with this pilot in his simulator, which I don't know if is as big of a deal if people made it out to be, but with this simulator where you have FBI working to recover some of the deleted files and things along that line. But again, with the reality of this being a potential terrorist attack, potentially, you know, it could be another plot coming, there could be something else coming, and I think we need to, but this is also a lesson, though, about what happens if you cut your defense. Right now, we have the ability to have naval ships out on search and rescue, but as we look at the future of where we're going with the Navy, it's going to be a lot smaller and a lot more difficult for us to be involved in things like this.
I know you're a pilot by background, but what about listening devices? What extent of your knowledge tells you about our capability to pick up a ping at 16,000 feet below the ocean?
Well, look, we have a lot of good capability, but 16,000 feet's a lot of water. And we know with the Airbus that crashed out of South America, it took us a couple years to find that black box. Thankfully, it was still pinging. I think this is going to be difficult if this is at the bottom of 16,000 feet. But, you know, look, miracles can happen, and this is one where hopefully we get some answers to, not just for what actually happened, but to give the peace to some of the families that are obviously grieving with this and dealing with this every day.
No question about that. As a pilot, you still come back to the following data points. This plane started to turn west about 30 minutes into its flight, or even less than that, which was 12 minutes before the co-pilot said, "All right, good night." What explains that?
Look, I know there's a lot of theories out there. I think the theory I've held on to from the beginning is it's probably more than likely malice by one of the pilots. And, you know, we've seen pilots snap before. We've seen them have political motivations. I think that's more likely than not. I think there's some theory to the idea that everybody became incapacitated and maybe, or they had a fire and they were trying to turn off the electrics on it. But, you know, the reality is there's a lot of things where there's a lot of points at which the pilots could have still made contact with air traffic control. And the timing of this was peculiar. It was in between when you switch air defense zones, you switch controllers. And so the controller that's letting the plane go is more likely to say, oh, he's turning left. Maybe the next controller told him to turn left. The next controller would say, well, maybe the previous controller told him to turn left, and there you're in kind of a gray area where people just aren't paying attention. So the timing is way too peculiar.
That is very interesting. You're saying that that is the window of opportunity.
I think so. Without a full positive handoff, you know, the next controller may say, well, he had it for whatever reason. Maybe he requested a turn to the west, and he's going back home. And the previous controller may say, well, the next guy turned him west. So it's interesting, but the timing, I think, is very peculiar, and somebody knew what they were doing.
You're very right about the assets on behalf of the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force, of which there are many. And we could be of great value in this, and we'll see when the sun comes up tomorrow. 12 hours ahead they are in Australia. When the sun comes up, we'll see if that happens. Adam Kinzinger, thank you.